Hey guys, Ben here and welcome back to another video on The Flash. Today we're going to be talking about Season 9, Episode 10. This is a New World Part 1. We begin with a new intro. It's Part 1 Reunions. Great new intro to start a new and final chapter of The Flash. This is truly the final chapter. This episode was a true homage to Season 1 of The Flash. So much happens. We have so much to break down. We're going to go into all the spoilers in today's video. So if you do go on to enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future DCTV videos later this year. Okay guys, we have to talk about this. Holy crap, what an episode. This was the full circle moment we've been waiting for. We go back to the year 2000 and we see a whole new world as well. So let's go into this. The beginning of the episode starts with someone who looks very familiar. And this person is in that West household, so where Barry grew up with Joe and Iris and everything. And so you wonder, what's this guy doing here, right? This does not look like Joe's house currently right now because Allegra's living there. So clearly something else is going on. And so we go to Mercury Labs, we follow someone from behind, and very much so looks like that is Eddie Thawne, played by Rick Cosnett. Yes, it is Rick Cosnett, but who actually is it? Because the Eddie Thawne we know was a cop, and this person is referred to as Doctor as he walks in, and he's been living a whole life in this other time period or an entirely new world. So who is this person? You get to see a flash of his entry card into Mercury Labs, and that person is none other than Malcolm Gilmore. But who is Malcolm Gilmore? What is this random guy with the face of Eddie Thawne doing? Well, I don't even think he at this point knows what's going on, but this is clearly a take on Malcolm Thawne, and I believe he's actually a Thawne. I don't know why his surname is Gilmore. We were expecting this to maybe be Eddie, but be Eddie from somewhere else, or be Malcolm Thawne, because that is Cobalt Blue in the comics. So we're really getting into this Cobalt Blue story right away, and I love the way that we've started, especially with that new intro as the blue lightning breaks in through the logo and you get a whole new world as the title. Okay, so we go back to present day, or at least in our normal timeline, our normal world. We see Joe with Cecile. He's like, I'm the luckiest person, and Cecile was around for the weekend, which is obviously a one-off at the moment, considering she is busy trying to become a hero. At the same time, Keone appears under the door into her apartment. She's writing some sort of notebook or a book, and she talks about how she refroze a lake, and Argus is cataloging her powers. Like, we've clearly time jumped a bit since the last episode because Iris is now heavily pregnant as well. So things are coming along, and it seems like in the case of Keone, she's been able to get a hold of her powers pretty well. But as I said, we go to Barry and Iris, and Iris is due any day now to give birth. So I believe these next final episodes of The Flash, obviously this was episode 10, we have 11, 12 and 13 to go. So 3 more episodes in this A New World saga. And I'm pretty sure it's going to take place in the course of like maybe 3 or 4 days maximum, because as it says, Iris is ready to give birth. It's not going to be like big time jump between each episode. It's pretty much going to continue right after where the other one ends. And so out of nowhere, Barry vanishes as his body is covered by some sort of blue lightning, and he appears in a whole new world in a different time period. He draws the conclusion pretty quick that he's in the year 2000 by looking at the number plates, and he goes, what did I do this time? I mean, what a start to an episode, like, so good. What has the Flash been doing all this time? And this episode is even directed by Eric Wallace and written by himself. But let's continue with this. So we have Barry who tries to time travel. He can't enter the portal, so he ends up going to CCPD. Everything looks very old-fashioned. Obviously this is the year 2000, as I said. So he's looking for Joe's help at CCPD, and so when he gets to actually talk to Joe, he can't reveal things, and so he's looking kind of shady. He asks about Tina McGee trying to basically get her contact details because she's not in the phone book, and it's pretty clear at this point that Barry's not going to get much help because he is so wary about breaking the timeline. Even though just him being there probably should break the timeline, he doesn't want to do anything worse. But as soon as Barry sees the date on the table on the calendar, he runs out of CCPD as we flash back to the night of Nora Allen's murder. Barry is thinking at this point this is Reverse Flash's doing because of the important date, the fact that it is the day of the murder. So that was a great introduction to what's going on with Reverse Flash in this episode, and so if we continue onwards, Barry calls Professor Stein as he searches for answers about what is exactly going on, but he hangs up because he thinks it's a prank call. That was a nice little callback to season 1. Obviously, this is one big homage to season 1. We have so many characters from the past. But as he hangs up the phone, Barry sees his parents on the street. He is there for a reason, and out of nowhere, Reverse Flash and his lightning shows up out of nowhere, knocking Barry onto the road, and Barry's parents come to the rescue. Nora even says to Henry, he looks just like my father, which is something that they regularly reference every time that our Nora sees our present day Barry because of the way that he grows up and the fact that, you know, he does look similar. Anyway, let's continue with this because there's so much to cover in this episode, and yes, we will get to the night of Nora's murder because we gotta discuss exactly what goes on because it's mind-blowing to us Flash fans. And so, at the scene of the hit and run outside CCPD, Joe is there. He realizes that the person that was hit was Barry, and he thinks they have to help him, and so he picks up this blue crystal from the ground. His eyes glow blue, and at that point, you know, things are going bad for Joe because he is being taken over by this substance. And so then Barry, Nora, and Henry go to Zatara's pizza restaurant, which is a nice reference to Zatara, the DC character from the comics. But Barry's still trying to run away from his parents' death. And so Nora's like, do you believe in fate? And they have this great conversation between the two, and also Henry as well. And so Barry leaves them all of a sudden as he realizes like this is just way too much, and then out of nowhere outside Thawne appears, and so Barry threatens to kill Thawne pretty much instantly, and without surprise Thawne is like, go on, do it, kill me Barry, because he knows that Barry's never gonna kill him. And so then he goes, so what are we doing in the year 2000? And Barry realizes very quickly that he hasn't brought him back, and that's what he originally thought because of the day that he arrived at. So they're both stuck here together, and I should mention that Reverse Flash was already here. He wasn't brought back, and so this was his intent the whole time. Obviously, this version of Thawne has a lot of history, and he's been building up to this moment where he's back to kill Barry as a kid. That is the whole reason that he is here. But Barry was brought here by someone or something else. And so Barry and Thawne are at the bar and they have a beer together. Barry's having none of it though, even though Thawne is totally loving it because he's saying he's just here to savor the day, to spend the day with Barry before he wins. This is when Barry storms out of the bar because he's just had enough of Thawne toying with him, especially because he doesn't know exactly what's going on. So he goes back to Nora and Henry Allen, and so he tells them what he would have told his parents if he could meet them. It was a really touching scene. I really thought this was one of the best scenes of the episode because he was literally speaking right to them, and I just thought it was perfect. It actually really reminded me of those times when Barry was actually able to go back to the night of Nora's death and talk to his mum. It was that sort of emotion, and it really, really got to me, that's for sure. Okay, so out of nowhere you hear Barry, which echoes in the halls. I don't know if it's just specifically speaking to Barry or not, but it's actually Joe. And so Joe has been taken over by this blue stone that he has. His eyes glow blue, and Joe knows that Barry's from the future. This basically gives him away. And so this person, this being who is controlling Joe, has been waiting for Barry since the dawn of time to arrive at this moment and try and take what is his. And so Barry has this fight scene with Joe. Actually was pretty reminiscent of Arrow at some bits in terms of the fight choreography, but obviously very Flash related with all the lightning and the powers on show. And so Joe and everyone else is apparently a part of the plan, and the being within inside Joe says, "I'm the real deal, you'll learn to pay for what you've done." So there is clearly something that this person is trying to correct, and he even says, "I'm a force of nature," and the fact that he wants to correct the imbalance Barry created in the universe at many points throughout Barry's life. And so this has been a moment that has been waiting, and it was always meant to be. And so obviously we haven't known all of this since season 1, but now things are starting to line up and make sense. Cobalt Blue is teasing Barry about his actions from the past. He seems to know absolutely everything, and so he's like, "Are you going to run to Mama and risk changing the timeline?" After this, we even get to see Dr. Rosso, who is Ramsey Rosso's mom, I presume, or maybe is his wife, I don't know, but they had a really bad English accent. Anyway, that's a small Easter egg right there. But Barry has to deal with what's going on with Joe. Obviously, if he kills Joe, he's gonna kill Joe actually, so that's gonna be really bad. It's gonna erase everything in the future, so Barry can't do that. And so Barry, after being grabbed whole by Cobalt Blue Joe, is what I'm going to call him, thinks of his life in the future, thinks of his baby-to-be, obviously that's young Nora, and it gives himself some sort of power. It's almost like his lightning rod. I think that's what he's tapping into right there. And so Barry overloads Cobalt Blue Joe with lightning, and the whole hospital fills with blue and orange lightning as both of them go flying away from each other. And so the blue crystal is knocked out of Joe's pocket or wherever it was, and it vanishes, so it goes somewhere else, and basically it's going to take a hold of someone else, and it's going to cause Barry problems. And so this is where things get truly juicy, because you hear in the voice overlay, "Run Barry, run," and it's Thawne and it's various other people from Barry's past. And so Barry intercepts Thawne from killing his mum as he's on the way to the Allen household. Now obviously this is really important because this is the night of her death, and Barry, by intercepting, could potentially be changing things in the future. But Barry's like, "I'm here to save you, Thawne," because he's basically warning him about if he actually continues with this, he's going to be stuck here. But Thawne just won't listen. He remains determined to kill Barry as a kid, as he always intended to do. He never intended to kill Barry's mum, but that's just the way it's supposed to be. As it said, it's a fixed point in time, and so Barry will win the war against them, even though Thawne will win this moment. But that's just until he realizes that he should have listened to Barry's warnings. And so it's that night. I went insane when the scene happened. You saw Barry and Thawne chase after each other. Barry literally became the original Flash. He is that Flash that we saw at the beginning of season 1, in the pilot episode, and many more episodes. It's the full circle moment we've been waiting for throughout the entirety of the show. We've speculated for years about when is Barry going to become this original Flash, or as we originally called him, original timeline Flash, but instead Barry has just become that original Flash. And it's in this moment that he is the actual Flash that tells the past versions of himself to stop. I think I literally lost my mind when the scene happened, when I saw Barry and Thawne crash in through the window as they fight, and Barry saves himself as a kid and tells his past self not to do it. He puts his hand out. That iconic scene is recreated from the perspective of our Barry from our time. It's all happening. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was quite honestly one of the best moments in The Flash. Like, honestly, this episode was so good. So much happened, and it's one of the most satisfying scenes in The Flash history because, as I said, it's a proper full circle moment. We've been waiting for this. It happened. And I just couldn't believe my mind. Like, I literally had my hands on my head, like, mind blown. And so Thawne, after this, quickly realizes everything as he has killed Barry's mum instead of Barry as a kid. And obviously Barry didn't prevent his mum from being killed. And Thawne quickly realizes exactly what's going on here. The fact that this is a fixed moment in time. It had to happen. And Barry gets this amazing speech that he talks to Thawne, and it makes us realize that Barry has finally found peace after decades of thinking about this, of decades of torture from Thawne, but not anymore. He says, "I got to see my parents one last time, and today brought me the peace I've been looking for ever since." And it's at this moment that Barry completely disappears. He goes and vanishes once again with the blue lightning coursing around him. Clearly you can make the connection to Cobalt Blue and the crystal and what took over Joe. And so it's at this moment that we go back to Malcolm Gilmore, aka Malcolm Thawne. And in this new world there is a Speed Force storm brewing in the outside. You can see the red lightning crackling, and as a Flash fan you know what's about to happen. The liquid in his lab goes up, and I have a feeling that in this version of the timeline he is the Barry Allen of this world. He could be the Flash of this world, and that's because he is a scientist and he hasn't recreated this like obviously Thawne in the future. So I think because he's in this whole new world, he could potentially be the Flash of the other world. But the Speed Force storm hits and Malcolm is hit by the lightning and his body is coursing with this red lightning. He quickly wakes up after, and he sees this confidential form on the ground, and I feel like this could be some sort of weird multiversal connection that was just supposed to happen. And so this file is here. We're just gonna have to take it that it's here. Obviously there's no explanation, and I'm sure there is some sort of explanation for why there is a Speed Force storm going on and why he got hit by lightning, and I think we're gonna see that in the next few episodes. But he sees a report of Eddie Thawne's death and he goes, "Who the hell is Eddie Thawne?" And that's where we end the episode. He's in an entirely different world. He is an entirely different person. He has been living his life. I don't think he's in the year 2000. Really doesn't look like that. I think he, as I said, is in a whole new world, and that is literally in the title. So what is going on with Malcolm Thawne? Let me know down in the comments below what you think about all of this. This episode was one of the best episodes of The Flash that I've ever seen as a fan. It was so satisfying going back to that night and having Barry become the original Flash and seeing Malcolm Thawne become a speedster. There is so much mystery right now. I can't wait to see what exactly goes on. Honestly, this was action-packed. I couldn't get my eyes off the screen as I was watching because just so much was happening. This was a 10 out of 10 episode. Amazing stuff. Can't wait for next week's episode. So that pretty much does it for this video, guys. Please be sure to leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed this video. Also subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos, and you can click on the top right corner of the screen to watch my latest video. But I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.
I see room.